We all know that the males in almost every species are the ones who make the move to woo the females. They will do whatever it takes to get the female and to mate with them. Darwin, on the other hand, wondered why such a thing. He thought that even though some of the traits of males, such as a beautiful tail for peacocks, would woo the female and increase their chance of reproducing, it might decrease their chance of survival. The colors would not only attract females, but it'll also attract predators. This tail also makes it complicated for these birds to roost in the trees, and when it's wet, it will be hard for them to escape the predator because it's too heavy. There are other similar examples of this, including a male tungera frog of Central America. They would attract females with their songs, but they also attract bats and blood-sucking flies that preys on them. In an experiment done by Jerry Yusak and his colleagues, they made colored lizards from soft clay and painted them to look like real ones. The one on the left in this slide is the male and the other one is the female. They made this model so predators would mistake them for the real animals, and the soft clay will preserve the bite marks. After only a week, 35 out of 40 male models had bite marks, mostly by snakes and birds, and none of the 40 female models were attacked. This shows that sometimes being colorful and beautiful in the animal kingdom is not the best thing. Sexual dimorphisms are the traits that differ between males and females within a species. An example of this are beautiful tails, colors, and songs done by the males. According to Coyne, having a fancy tail and a seductive song will not help you survive, but it will increase your chance of having more offspring. It was Darwin who came up with the idea of sexual selection, or the selection that increases an individual's chance of getting a mate. There are two forms for sexual selection. The first one is direct competition between males, or as Darwin calls it, the law of battle. It's when males compete for the possession of the female. An example of this would be the bloody battle of elephant seals to win the female and drive off the males in their territory. The second form is indirect competition or mate choice. This is when it's up to the female to decide who wins the battle and gets to mate with her. She chooses by favoring a trait or behavior over another. They will choose one that is more attractive in their eyes. Like what I said earlier, male elephant seals compete with another for territory and females. The female would want to mate with the alpha and ignore the ones who lost. An additional fact about male elephant seals is that they are polygynous, meaning they mate with more than one female during the breeding season. And if you're the alpha, you can mate up to 100 females.
We are still unsure how female choice evolved. In fact, Darwin and Wallace disagreed on whether or not it was even a possibility. Studies done in this time period on peacocks showed that males actually all gathered together in one display where females could directly compare them. Even though males with more ornate displays appeared to have more mating success, the real proof of this female selection came almost 100 years later. A study done showed that males whose feathers had been clipped, decreasing their display, won fewer mates than unclipped males. This showed that females were the selecting force because they preferred males whose feathers were more ornate. Since then, many similar studies have been done, particularly with birds such as widow birds and sages. This is mainly because they are active and easy to observe by biologists. However, mate choice can be seen in many other animals, such as guppies and spiders. There have been so many studies done now showing that female selection that it is clear that it has been the driving force of evolution for many sexually dimorphic species. It doesn't seem to make sense that species reproduce sexually, only contributing half of their genes to the next generation when the goal is to get as many of your genes into the next generation as possible. Asexual reproduction seems like it would be the most fit, such as parthenogenesis, where female eggs can develop without fertilization. The only problem with this is that there would be only new daughters produced, and eventually the males would disappear, wiping out the possibility of sexual reproduction forever. While it is uncertain as to why sexual selection outweighs the alternatives regardless of the sacrifices, there are a few accepted ideas. First is that each mating randomizes the genes, creating new combinations that could help a population evolve more quickly, either by creating more fit individuals or by dumping all of the less fit genes into one genetic scapegoat, weeding them out. Secondly, systems with two sexes will always be more stable than ones with more or less. And thirdly, the size difference in gametes between males and females cause them to develop different mating strategies. Males having many small disposable gametes have evolved to be more promiscuous, while females having few large gametes have evolved to be more selective. This is probably because they are expending more energy physically caring for their offspring and putting in more parental care. In more than 90% of mammal species, females provide all of the parental care. This means males must compete to fertilize a limited number of female eggs, making the variance among males much higher, thus providing evidence that the evolution of sexually dimorphic species is mostly driven by male competition and female selection.
So I'll be talking about the sexual selection and on why females are allowed to be choosy. So in many species, the females are the ones that are allowed to be really picky on who they would like to mate with. Usually this is so they can get a gain or get something out of this being picky on who they want to end up having their offspring from. So Darwin had a theory where he noticed that males that were brightly colored or had these extra decorations on them, whether it was a longer tail or they had extra fluff of plumage on their feathers, that gave them this extra gain on getting the interest of the females. And they weren't too sure and didn't understand why, but that we will be talking about in our next coming slides. In this slide, we'll be talking about what's in it for me. So for the females, it's what will they gain from being so selective on which male they would like to mate with. So there's two different ways that the females can benefit from being so selective. One is by benefiting directly, and the other one is by benefiting indirectly. Now, the difference between the two of these is when the female is direct, means she chooses a mate that she knows will be a provider and somebody that will be there to care for the offspring and will more likely protect the nest while she's away or so. When the indirect one, she's just basically looking for eye candy. She's looking for somebody that has a better looking appearance because she can tell that they have a higher fitness. It's probably because they have brighter feathers or those extra decorations on them that we talked about previously. So appearance is everything. Generally, the males that have brighter colors are more likely to have more mates than those that have a lighter color to them. This usually shows that they have more fitness and that they can be healthier than those that don't have those darker, brighter colors. As you can tell in the picture on here especially, the females are generally, it's in with many of the species, with the frogs, fish, birds, that you can see the females are generally lighter in color. The males, as you can see with the cardinals here, that the male has a darker, more red color to him. Scientists also did an experiment to see which way females would go on the appearances because they wanted to test the theory to see if the appearance was really what would drive a female to mate with a male. So they decided to artificially add length onto a bird that had a shorter tail, so it gave him the appearance of a longer tail. And they put the females in with these males that had both long and short tails, and they noticed that the females rather mate with the ones with longer tails. And the one that didn't have as long of a tail didn't have as many females. And they noticed with this that the females were more attracted to the longer tails. They figured that it was probably because they had better fitness or appeared more likely to carry a gene that would help them survive in future generations. Earlier we talked about the differences between the direct benefits and the indirect benefits that females find with these males. And some of the direct benefit features that we can tell are that the females choose the brightly colored ones because they believe that they would bring more food for their offspring, that they would be a better provider rather than one that is duller in color. Scientists think that some of these brighter colors show that they're healthier and that they eat all this extra food and will be able to provide enough food for the young. And a way that they can kind of tell by this is because that certain foods and seeds that these birds eat have certain pigments in them that give them these extra brighter colors. So that is something females notice in these males and makes them want to mate with them because they know that they can be a provider. So some of the indirect benefit features with the males include, again, being brightly colored, that they have long tails, and or they have louder, longer calling sounds, which shows that they are better than the other males around them, which shows that they can outcompete those around them. There's also 3 types of genes that can increase the frequency with whomever they mate with. These 3 include a male indicator trait that shows that he has these good genes. There's a gene with the female that show her that she prefers this indicator trait in the males. And then the third one is obviously the good genes. So what this all basically means is that if these males have a trait that shows they have good genes, the female has this gene that shows that they can indicate these traits that these males have, and they also have good genes that hypothetically later on down through the generations of these offspring that they have, they should be better fit and have more chance of continuing to have these good genes throughout their species.